welcome to Sound Entertainment News. This is Lisa Olson, and on the phone with us today we have Ricky Phillips of Styx. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Lisa. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. First of all, I would like to know if you wouldn't mind if we started at the beginning with you. I know you started out playing piano when you were really young. How'd you get to the bass?
Well, I think what happened is I started sneaking my dad's guitar out of the closet when he wasn't around, and I was a closet player. And then I guess I started my first, my buddy Steve Gunner. We had a duo when we were about 10 years old. My last name is Phillips, so Gunner and Phillips turned into Gunlips. And so we were a kind of a power-packed little duo when we were about 10, and then started our first band around 12 called the Warlocks. And I got to tell you, the Warlocks were pretty badass. That was a great little band. But we were playing like the Stones and Beatles and whatever the music of the day was. And my bass player had left his bass at my house for one weekend when we were practicing in my parents' basement. And man, I started playing the bass and trying to figure out Paul McCartney's bass lines and realized there was a little something to it. And it's just something that stuck. And I still played piano, I still played guitar, and actually continued that into my professional career. I played a lot of different things on different records and CDs that I've done, but bass became sort of the forerunner.
Yeah, you were really young when you decided. You were really young when you decided, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to play bass. You were like 10 or 12?
Yeah, certainly by the time I was 12 and 13 and you're playing your first gigs and it's something about seeing the girls scream. Because I wasn't exactly the guy in school that all the girls were going to go after. And it's like, it's kind of, I think most musicians will tell you that something about, unless you're a lead singer, there is that LSD thing. But the lead singer's disease. But if you're just a bass player or you're just another musician in the band, something about most artists, I've found anyway, you've got a shy side. Throw us up on stage and it's like teasing.
Animal, right?
Yeah, well, it's like teasing a rattlesnake. But as far as getting that kind of, I wasn't the life of the party. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I bet you are now.
Well, we kind of have a party every night now, and we're the center of attention at that party. So it's good fun for me. But I just love music. I came from a musical family, and it's been a part of.
I was going to ask you, was your parents were involved in music and the theater?
Yeah, local theater up in Northern California where I grew up. My dad was always throwing me in the kids' roles of the plays that he was either directing or maybe, and he did some acting as well. He did quite a bit of acting early on. Since my brother was old enough to kind of take over those kids' roles, I kind of bowed out. I was getting more into the music, and I didn't really pursue any of that. But it was a good, probably good schooling for what was to come.
Awesome. That's fabulous. So before you moved to L.A. from Northern California, I think on your bio it said you were already touring a lot. Was that in your band Warlocks?
No. I actually went to college, went to San Francisco State, and then I got to my senior year and realized that, really music was kind of calling, and I wanted to kind of follow that path for a while before I committed to doing some kind of straight-up job. And that's what I did, and I just set out on the road. I ended up playing in bar bands all around the country and ended up in Los Angeles in 1978 and joined a band that had come over from England called the Babies. And that was my first big kind of break into the recording business anyway.
And how did that happen that you got hooked up with the Babies? How did you get that audition?
Well, when I landed in Los Angeles, I was did an audition for a band that had kind of been making a big name for itself. It was a guy named Timmy Dulane. He'd written songs. He's written songs for Rufus. He'd written Shaka Khan, and he'd written a bunch of stuff that was getting a lot of attention. But he was a great singer, songwriter, and performer in his own right. Great guitar player. And so he was getting a lot of attention in Los Angeles, and I just happened to pass the audition. And I've been in L.A. for just a couple of weeks when the sound man for the Babies had actually seen me perform at a local club there. And John Waite, who was our singer in the Babies, was the bass player initially and wanted to just front the band. It's a long story, but that's kind of how I got in the door there.
Awesome. Do you still keep in touch?
I absolutely do. As a matter of fact, we were just in the UK with Journey and Foreigner, and Journey now, of course, Jonathan Cain. When we split up in the Babies, Jonathan Cain left the Babies and has been in Journey ever since and written most of their big hits.
Right.
So it was fun being on the road with them, and all my buddies in Foreigner, we ripped it up over there. It was fun to just kind of do those are two great bands to be on the stage with every night, and the UK came in mass to see us, and it was just a blast.
Right. Awesome. That's awesome. So when you got into Bad English, I mean, it was just great music. You guys had great success. Congratulations, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Was it just, crazy fun touring back then, or was it, like we maybe imagine, or was it all business?
Sometimes. But, what's funny is when we put the band together and started recording, we weren't sure. We didn't know. We had been friends for years, and Jonathan and I were going to do something, and then John Waite came into the picture, and then as we got together and we were writing and recording, Neil was coming around, and he heard what we were doing. We asked him, hey, why don't you throw down a solo? So Journey had just split up, so Neil really wanted to do his own thing. He said, man, I've been stuck to a band all this time. I really want to focus on a solo career. And in the end, he said, oh, man, okay, I'm in. So but we were kind of like, even though everybody had done stuff, we weren't sure what was going on and how will this be received. And when we first went out on the road, we were playing clubs and we were doing the same thing that any brand new band. I'm sure we got booked a little easier, but we were still playing smaller venues. And then, boom, when they released When I See You Smile, it just shot like a rocket ship to #1. And all of a sudden, we were in the big rooms and in bands like Whitesnake and others were asking us to open up tours that they'd already kind of done that path. And then we got into the bigger arenas and we were off and running. But, every band has to start. It doesn't matter who you are. It's kind of like, what have you done lately? And that's just how fickle this business is. So you still have to prove yourself to get into the big arenas.
But honestly, you've managed to do that very well, and it sounds like it's been really rewarding for you, and you've had a lot of fun at it, too.
We have, and I have, man. I feel blessed. I'm on stage right now. We are on the road with Yes, and Chris Squire, who is one of my major influences. I always, people say, well, who are you influenced by? There's always Paul McCartney and John Entwistle and John Paul Jones. But Chris Squire is right in there, and to hear him every night is so inspiring for me. I'll tell you what, I've never had to follow one of my idols, though. This is like the first time that we've gone on. Yes plays their show, which is to me just standout awesome. And
right.
to go on after that, man, you got to stand up tall. You got to stand up tall to follow and act that good. And what the music is so inspiring for me to listen to, and then go on stage.
Yeah, I think that's got to be really rewarding, is to look at your idols and to be able to, share the same stage with them and everybody get along and get to,
Yeah.
put out some really good music.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's absolutely, just I would say in the dream come true if I'd even ever dreamed that. I didn't even imagine that for some reason. And then here it is. And being on the road, Alan White, I did a record years back. I did it with a buddy of mine who had sung with Toto, Fergie Fredrickson, and we just called it Fredrickson Phillips, and we released it in Europe, and it did well. It was great, and I had written a bunch of music that was kind of a tip of my hat to eras gone by, certain 70s and 80s influenced songs.
Right.
And I had Alan White play on a track that I had that was sort of a track that I was tipping my hat to Yes and Pink Floyd. And now, and Alan played on John Lennon's Imagine. I mean, come on, he's like
Absolutely.
one of those drummers that's had this amazing career. And now he's on stage, of course, with Yes, and it's I've got to pinch myself sometimes.
How was it meeting Jimmy Page for the first time? I know you played with Coverdale Page.
Well, I'll tell you exactly. We got there. Denny Carmassi, who was the drummer with Montrose, and he played with Sammy Hagar after that, of course, and in 10 years with Heart. He was the drummer on that project, and he and I were flown in, and we were going to get some lunch before we were going to actually meet Jimmy for the first time when David Coverdale had called me and asked me if I would help them. He and Jimmy were putting songs together, and they weren't sure how they were going to fashion the band, whether it was going to be a super group or what, or just the two of them. But we were sitting there having our sobe noodles or whatever, and Denny said, "Man, we're going to meet Jimmy Page in about 20 minutes." Couldn't eat anymore. I had to push the plate away, and it was the first. It had been so rushed because I was doing some other things at the time, some other sessions. It was so rushed getting there. I hadn't really given it the proper, thought process. And when I walked in the room and Jimmy came up with his hand out and a big smile on his face, I realized it was going to be okay. We just had a blast. It was pretty hard work, nose to the grindstone stuff. Up early in the morning, totally on rock and roll hours. I'd get up about 7 and be in Denny's condo at about 8 o'clock. We worked from 8 to about 9:30 on material that we'd run the night or day before with Jimmy. Then we'd go in. We'd be in the studio by 10 o'clock in the morning. We'd work on the material. This wasn't a recording studio. It was basically we were putting and arranging the songs that would be on the record. And then David would come in the afternoon, and he would sing and work. We'd work on that part of it into the afternoon, and we'd all go have dinner and get up the next morning and do it all over again. So this is a process that we flew in as new material would come up. We'd fly in and out back and forth. And then the next thing I knew, they were handing me tickets to fly up to Vancouver to start recording and stuff, which initially I wasn't even being considered. They were going to put a supergroup together with John Antler as one of my heroes. Of course, was on the phone a few times, and there were other things going on, and it just ended up being a really, really great experience for me, and great. I learned so much from Jimmy Page and David actually about their ideas and their thought process on recording and arranging, which is one of the best and most successful probably in the history of rock and roll. It would be Led Zeppelin. So, what else can I say?
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's excellent story. I know you've been touring with Styx since about 2003 now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And are you guys have any plans for doing any writing or anything in the future?
We always are writing. There are so many songs within the people in this band. Everybody's a songwriter and a good one at that. It's fun to hear everybody's stuff. I'll walk on the bus, I'll be setting my bags down, and I'll hear somebody standing singing into a computer on their bunk. The song I did, it's something that just came up that day. Sometimes I'll get a phone call, hey, can you come down to my room and put down a quick bass part on blah, blah, blah. We're always, the process never changes. We're songwriters, but the reality of the business is this has gone from the recording business to the touring business, and that's just the way it financially runs. We have a big crew of people that we don't want to lose, so our focus is on touring because that's kind of that's our bread and butter. And
how many are you guys? You seem to tour quite a bit.
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
how many days on the road? You guys tour a lot?
Yeah, we do. I always hear the number 200 days on the road a year thrown around. We don't do 200 shows a year, but there's a lot of travel days. There's days off in between. There's sometimes routing days where it takes 2 days maybe to. We do things sometimes where we'll come off the stage on the East Coast, jump onto a red eye, fly to the West Coast, go to a show, and then get back and fly. But most of the time, for those shows, we have a B rig. We have the same sort of a copied setup that's on another truck because physically the equipment can't get there in time. So a truck sometimes is in motion from one coast to another while we're in transit by airplane, so that the B rig can get there and be set up as soon as our boys hit the ground. We stay busy, but just getting back to your question about the recording, we do occasionally get in and have had some DVD things that have come up where new material has appeared on it. Regeneration 1 had a song called Difference in the World, which Tommy Shaw wrote. I kind of think of it as an extension of Angry Young Man, Fooling Yourself, the song Fooling Yourself. It's basically about a kid. We were all kind of dumped out at some point after being yelled at by parents and teachers, or instructed. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And at a certain point, everybody's expected to carry on and have a family or get a job and do the right thing. And everybody's interpretation on how they deal with that is different.
Right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing anything new from you. But Styx, they have such a great catalog of music. Do you have any favorite Styx songs that you like playing more than others? Or?
Yeah, we did a thing this last fall where we went out and we did all of the Grand Illusion album, took an intermission, came back and played all the Pieces of 8 album. And in doing that, some of the songs we don't normally get to because there just isn't enough time after you get through the hits and the songs everybody wants to hear. But I love, right now, some of the songs like Castle Walls and Queen of Spades and a few of the what we would call album tracks, I guess, are kind of been my favorites to play lately. But every night we play Renegade. Come on, that song is a party in itself. It's a party in itself. I love doing that. And Fooling Yourself that I was just talking about is really a cool piece of music that Tommy Shaw wrote. Those are probably standouts. But even when you get to Come Sail Away in Too Much Time and Blue Collar, even though we play those most every night, for some reason with a new crowd comes a new energy, and we find a way to keep it fresh night by night. So there's certainly not a downfall there. I love playing them all.
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to seeing you. I wanted to ask also, I hear you have an extensive guitar collection. Can you tell us about that?
I do. I just basically, through the years, have fallen in love with, the tools of the craft. And I love guitars. I love old guitars and guitars that were used by some of my heroes. And I've gravitated to getting sounds in the studio. A guy who plays synthesizer pushes a button and gets to change the sound. But one guitar can only alter so much in what timbre and Scott. Right. So we have to have a little arsenal there. And I started putting together, I got really into 50s and 60s Fenders, which led me to buying a 63 Gibson Firebird, one of the first 80 made. The same guitar that Eric Clapton played in the Cream. I always thought that was a cool, overlooked tone, really, really nice. And so I ended up buying one of those, which led me to buying a Telecaster that I'd always wanted. It becomes a sickness. At a certain point, you just start collecting and wanting more and more. But now when I'm in the studio, it's a blast because I'll set up my little arsenal of weapons there around me, and then I just grab for whichever one is calling out.
Is it guitars and basses that you collect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, I started playing guitar early on, and I still have a love for a lot of tones that came way before I was able to really doing anything credible with them. And now that that's my gig, man. I've got to recreate these sounds on the spot. So I've tried to kind of go. It's a love and it's a fever at the same time, but it's something that I've tried to surround myself with the right tools.
Right. Do you mostly play Gibsons live?
No, I play Fender basses, and in Styx I play 5-string basses. I started doing that in Bad English because I noticed with keyboard-heavy bands, the keyboard player is always able to go down to hit low Ds and Cs and Bs, and I don't want him to have all the fun down there, so I ended up playing 5-string basses back in the day so that I could do that as well. I actually designed a bass that the Fender Custom Shop built for me over 20 years ago. And it's kind of my main bass. I get a lot of email about it. I usually start the Styx shows with that bass, and then I change from there as the songs progress. But there are certain things about playing in a big sound band like Styx that I find that 5-string basses are important for. And I will play some of my vintage 4-strings occasionally, depending on what set list we're drawing from. But yeah, I mean, I'm open. I've never ever said I got to have this, because as soon as you say that, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I try to use as many things and whatever's appropriate for whatever music I'm playing.
Very cool. Well, Ricky, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out to talk with us today, and we are all looking forward to seeing you I think you'll be in Seattle on the 29th.
Okay.
Where are you calling from now? Where are you at
right now? I'm in Detroit. I just got into Detroit this morning. We were in Indianapolis last night, and Kansas City the night before that, Nashville the night before that, Atlanta, Georgia before that. I mean, we were just last Wednesday, we were in Montreal, Canada. So we're making a big crazy swoop around the country.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you next week then.
All right. Well, hey, it's great talking to you, Lisa. Thanks so much for everything, and come backstage and tip one with us after the show.
Excellent. We will do that. Thanks, Ricky.
All right. Take care.
Chuck.
Hello?
Take care.